Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, we talk about all the scary doom and gloom stuff that's going on in the world today. And then, along with that, we talk about how we're going to handle it, right? You know, there's all kinds of comments. There's all kinds of videos and stuff of how to directly handle that specific threat, whether it be illegals coming across the border, the Russians, the Chinese, our own government, which is probably a bigger threat than just about anything, other than maybe the illegals. And they're kind of, in my opinion, working hand in hand together. So I think it'll end up being that the illegals will be eventually the government that we have to face. But that's another topic. But the point is that we often talk about, we plan for it, whether it be a tactical situation where we have to arm up, or dealing with the grid going down, or dealing with the food supply not being there, or not being something that we can have access to. There's all kinds of scenarios, and these are all legitimate, okay? I'm not downplaying any of them. You know, you should certainly be having a plan to handle these problems that I'm mentioning and more. But then there's other things that a lot of times don't get talked about as much. And I think it's because maybe they're not as glamorous. I don't know. Maybe I think because they're common everyday problems that do exist already, that always have existed, that we sometimes glaze over them because we're so used to, if one of these problems arise, then we seek assistance because we live in a society that assistance is available. If your house catches on fire, or your field, or your barn, or something like that, you can pretty much anywhere in the United States call 911 and have someone show up that can help put that out. I made a video just the other day on locals, and I'll be making more, talking about how you, as a homesteader, can put out your own fires. I know that sounds scary, but especially when it comes to wildfires, grass fires, stuff that, like this stuff out here, if it catches on fire on your property or something like that. I'm not recommending that you do that now necessarily. I mean, that's your choice. But there could come a time that help is not there. Medical stuff, we talk about that all the time, of how you should have, ample equipment and as much training as you can possibly get on how to handle medical problems, because at some point in time, the help that you're used to calling or going to a hospital or something like that just may not be there. And so we need to have a plan for that. This is the kind of stuff that may not be as glamorous, but it is pretty much guaranteed. I cannot guarantee that every single one of you will have to stand face-off with, government, or whether it's ours or foreign, with, illegals invading your town or complete anarchy and chaos. I can't guarantee that every one of you will face a grid down or something like that. But I can guarantee that every one of you, whether it's before or after everything collapses, you will face illnesses, you will face injuries, you will face other problems. And these are things that we need to be also planning and preparing. How do you handle this kind of stuff? Without going into too much detail, because I can't, I just went on a call, 911 call a little bit ago, of someone. It was a dog attack, a very large dog that was very aggressive and did a lot of damage. There was someone on the other end of that phone when they called, and we were able to respond, and not only between myself and others contained the aggressive dog, but also render aid to the person that was injured. What if that happens and you don't have anyone on the other end of the phone when you call, or maybe the phones don't work, whatever it is. Because and a dog, aggressive animals, is definitely something that's going to increase because of as things fall apart more. Already there's been reports over the last few years of people getting rid of their animals, their pets. They're not able to feed them. There's been shortages of pet food, and then just the increase in prices. I know that the pet food we've been purchasing over the past few years has gone up substantially. There's going to end up being more and more, and especially when things really start collapsing, there's going to end up being more strays. And honestly, if you don't know this, some of you already know this, but some of you may not, an aggressive, starving dog that's been domesticated is way, way more dangerous than a coyote or a wolf. Coyotes and wolves have a natural fear of humans. Even in a collapse, they're going to figure out how to eat. And they're going to, for the most part, avoid humans. It's not a lot. I mean, there are, every year attacks against humans by those types of animals, and mountain lions and bears and stuff like that. But your domesticated animals that have no fear of humans, when they start running in packs and they become aggressive, that's very bad. You're going to have a whole lot more to deal with that than you will with wild animals. I live right in the wild. We've had just about every kind of wildlife that exists in the Ozarks on our property at one point or another, and we've not had any problems with them, being aggressive towards any of us. Dogs, especially, aren't going to be that case. The diseases. Things like rabies and other diseases that can be spread from animals to human. Gonna be more. I'd mentioned already fires. The possibility, if you go back through history before there were fire departments and fire suppression and all this kind of awareness and stuff, it was very common 100 plus years ago, especially kind of out in the frontier, that when a grass fire or something started, it just kept burning until it burned itself out. And sometimes that would be weeks and months. Sometimes it would be the entire season. I mean, there's recorded incidences of large fires burning across the, Midwest, and they didn't put themselves out until the rainy season came. Because there was no one to put it out. There was no equipment. There was no, ample access to water, things like that. Now you say, well, if it happens, I'll go out there. I've got my own well. I can pump my own water out of it. Well, what if you don't have electricity? And pumping that well may not happen at all. And if it does, it may be on a limited basis. Are you able to pump the water enough to put enough water on a fire? These are things a lot of times we don't think about. And having that kind of plan in place, while it may not be a perfect plan, it's better than nothing. Injuries, you're going to injure yourself a whole lot more. Any of you that actually homestead, live on some type of hobby farm, trying to be self-sufficient in some way or the other, you know that you already get injured more often than you would if you lived a city life. If you're going to a 9-to-5 type of job, sitting in a cubicle in an office or whatever, the odds of you getting injured, other than maybe a paper cut, aren't that high. You're not using chainsaws and axes and cutting trees down and messing with barbed wire and all kinds of tools that can injure you in doing things. Now, if we do that, there's a medical system and there's medicine available to treat the injury and to possibly prevent illness through infections. If that system goes away, then what are you going to do? You're on your own. You have to have a plan already in place, enough medical equipment, not just to take care of the initial injury, but also the healing process. If you gash your leg open really good with a chainsaw, you need a lot of bandages and stuff potentially to close that wound, to stop the bleeding. But throughout the weeks of healing, you're going to need lots of dressing changes also. And so if you have just your little, first aid kit, your little IFAK, which is great to have, what are you going to do day 2 and 3 when you need to change the dressing? And that's the only first aid you have is in that little IFAK. You're going to need that. You're going to need some type of medicine, whether natural or not, to help prevent infections. What about just normal illnesses? We deal with low amounts of illnesses in the United States because we have a pretty decent water supply that's very safe, even though it's got fluoride and chlorine and all that kind of stuff. as far as like bacteria and parasites, it's not nearly anywhere near like it is in other countries. Just sanitation, general sanitation. We, as first world people, we, understand sanitation and how to sanitize things. If things fall apart in the world, that's kind of going to go by the wayside. People are going to kick into survival mode. They're not going to have clean water and clean other things. They're not going to have the time. And then also when you include into that the millions and millions of third world illegals that are coming across the border, you're going to see personal hygiene and just general hygiene, cleanliness and cooking and stuff go downhill. And you're probably going to see widespread diseases form. Diseases that have not been in American population for a long time, so most people don't have a natural immunity to them, whereas in third world countries. I mean, have you ever watched videos of like in India or places like that, and you're thinking, my goodness, how do they all keep from just dying of some disease? Well, they have a natural immunity to it because they've grown up that way. That's why if you go visit there and you live the same way or eat the same food, you'll get sick almost guaranteed. These are the kind of things that's going to happen. I know it's not as glamorous as getting your gear all kitted up and going out there and, fighting the commies or whoever it is, the three-letter agencies, but it's probably the more likely scenario that you're going to have to face. I've talked about in videos recently of dealing with death and dealing with age, dealing with folks that are, maybe they have dementia, maybe they have an injury that causes them to be disabled. These are kind of things that we may very well have to face completely on our own without any kind of system there to assist us. And so I would highly suggest you start thinking of these things. Think of just normal. What if your house floods? Maybe your water pipe bursts and everything floods, or the creek rises and it floods in your area, and you're not able to go purchase new things and get it repaired. You don't have an insurance company anymore that will take care of this. You're on your own. Maybe all your preps, all your medical supplies got ruined. Do you have a plan for that? Do you have backup plans? Your preps, that's your contingency plans. Do you have contingency plans for those? For if your first line of defense, your first line of preps get destroyed? Do you keep things in various places, not all in one spot? These are things that you should be certainly thinking about because, like I said, the likelihood that these kinds of scenarios will happen to most of you, at least one or two of them, are pretty high because they happen to people every day. Do you have a plan for them when they happen and there's no one there to come help? And that's really the big question. And so I want to encourage you to start thinking about this kind of stuff. What kinds of just accidents and tragedies and things that happen on a normal daily basis? I'm not talking about apocalyptic stuff. I'm talking about just regular, everyday stuff that happens. That you call 911, you go to the doctor, you go to the mechanic, you call the plumber, whatever it is. Are you able to handle those problems on your own? And if not, are you able to handle them as a community, as a tribe? Because that's going to be probably the biggest things that we have to deal with because they're just everyday problems already. And because they're everyday problems, and we're used to, like I said, we're used to there being someone there to come help, I think a lot of people just aren't thinking about them. So I want to encourage you to be thinking about these things, okay? Because they can happen anytime right now. So the odds are that they will happen in the future too when there's no help that can come and arrive. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.